Diaries of a Pastor's Wife with Lady Jim.
Welcome back to Diaries of a Pastor's Wife. I am Lady Jim. And how are you fine folks doing today? I cannot lie. It has been rough. Rough going for me. You guys, I'm sure, well, everybody probably has not experienced it, but working a 9 to 5, being in the corporate environment, and going through drama and difficulties, and trying to navigate how to be a child of God and be Christ-like when you are going through situations. And I can't, I was like, I asked my husband, I asked my family all the time, I'm like, why is it like every corporate job that I have, I am going through drama? Like there's always something. Somebody always has an issue with me. And I know that I cannot act a fool. But I try to be very nice, very accommodating, and I try to do the best I can. Um, and it seems like, I want to ask questions because I don't want to mess up. If procedures aren't documented correctly, well, I think it's better for me to ask the question than just do the wrong thing, or like, hey, I don't care. And it's like, would it be better just to not care about my work? And I battle with making sure that I'm putting God first and that the job is not overtaking my um, focus on God. And it's like, jobs can do that. It's like they will suck the life out of you. And I need to make sure that I find like, the right way to um, deal with that and how to respond in a Christ-like way in the midst of, unfair treatment. And, I do pray. I do have to work on praying for my enemies. That is not, I'm not going to lie. I am not perfect. Every day I thank God that He wakes me up, that I can continue to work on me. So I know that we are supposed to pray for our enemies, for those that despitefully use you. Um, and I just like every day I know that we're supposed to love our enemies. And Christ was the perfect example of loving his enemies, and still being that man of God that he was. And, I know that, people are like, oh, Christians, we can just walk all over them. Anybody that's a fight, because they need to be so, holy, and, they can't respond like everybody else, or, I don't know. I think there's like a stigma out there. But I do know that if you are being treated unfairly, I don't think that we're supposed to just lay down and take it. I believe that we are supposed to communicate clearly. We are supposed to be able to defend ourselves um, in a way that is not overt. Like it's not taking the place of God fighting our battles. But God did give us like a brain. He gave us common sense. He gave us mouths to be able to speak. So if things are being done and you're being treated unfairly, there are, you follow the steps that you're supposed to follow um, in the workplace. You don't just let it go and you're stressed out and you worry. And I know that we are not supposed to be fearful and worrisome. And I'm a work in progress, trying to get to that point. So yeah, that's how my week is going. I know you guys didn't really like ask, but if anybody is going through the same thing, I'm praying for you. And I know that the God that I serve is greater and bigger than any of these issues. And I want to get to that point in my life where it doesn't matter what is transpiring, that everything is in God's hands, and I am not going to get stressed out about um, things that God has the answer for and can control. And I'm a work in progress. But so my last post, it was just giving like the first part of like my testimony when I was young. And then we were kind of working up to like my high school years. And, um, I had really fallen away from loving God like I, had started out. I got really lost, distracted. So in my high school years, I was just wilding out. I wanted to fit in. It's like I wanted to fit in, but I was still like an individual in some areas. It's really like quirky. So I was not down with doing drugs. Like I had a fine line of things that I would do. Now, yes, I would drink. Yes, I wasn't a lot of parties that I was going to. I had just, I was making friends. I was stretching out. And I got into some trouble, and I actually moved back to where I originally came from, to go live with my dad because I was just causing my mom so many problems, for which I have apologized. I mean, that doesn't take out the stress of it. And I think I've gotten it back with my kids. So, not all of them, but some are, act just like their mother. Thank God. I have my husband that has imparted some very good attributes for my children. Yeah. So, just navigating, um, moving out, I got kicked out of my mom's and went to go live with my dad. And I have my two half brothers. And I just call them my brothers. I don't, it's not like and I moved in with my dad and my stepmom and my half brothers, and finished high school there. Um, and, I think it's hard when you are emotionally on an island trying to figure out who you are, what you're feeling, and how we process those feelings, or let me say how I process those feelings, is that I really just began destructive behavior because I was like, what's the point? What's the point in my life? What's the point? There's nothing. And I acted out, and I tried to, it's just, I wanted to fit in, wanted to do what everybody else was doing in certain areas. I was not a person who just would sleep around. And, you have a lot of my friends were like, yeah, I got a boyfriend and I'll sleep around. It wasn't so easy for me. I don't know what was, and I think that plays a part because you're like, what's wrong with me? That, am I ugly? Like, am I fat? Like, why is no one like paying attention to me? I'm not pretty enough. And that plays into your psyche. So, that those were, it was difficult. It was difficult. And I came to a point where emotionally I was just kind of like all over the place, but I was also just like done with everything. I was fed up. Like my tolerance was not in a good place. I'm wanting to make sure that my parents love me. I wanted to make sure that my stepmom liked me. So it's like I felt like I was changing who I was as a person, and I'm like splitting into 15 different people because I want to please this person over here, please this person over here, and then fit in at school. And it was just I guess that's just normal high school stuff. So I became very hardened. I built up a lot of walls, and I was just like, I'm, I'm, maybe I'm just not worth being loved. Um, so that all played into all the things I guess that I was going through. But I made some friends, that people that you can confide in. And it came to a point, I guess, when I was I think it was my senior year. I think I was, as soon as I turned 18, I kind of packed up my stuff out of my dad's house, and I went and I moved in with a friend. I wanted the independence. I felt like life was unfair, and that there were things that were expected of me that I was the only person that it was expected from. And I was just like, I had enough. I'm done. Like, I'm sick of this. So yeah, that's what I did. And in that, trying to act like I was pseudo, independent. I did get like a little part-time job. So after school or like on weekends, I would work. Like at that age, you're not making any money for real. But it was freeing for me. And I just felt like I could breathe. Um, so that time of my life, I started to hang around a crowd that was not the best. And it's, that's not putting anybody down, but for me, it was not the best fit for my life. And I got into some trouble, and ended up moving in with somebody else, another young lady, for maybe it was like 2 or 3 months, in one of the um, most crime riddled areas, um, that I chose to take a route, like, that I wanted to really harden myself, that I could hang out with the drug dealers. And um, I was hanging out with some really tougher crowds that I really could have gotten into some really deep trouble. And I look back at, I don't even understand how I made it out. Um, and you look back at the foundation that was laid, and I look at the prayers that were going up for me, I am sure nonstop. And it's like I really didn't even talk to my mom a lot at that point in time. I didn't talk to like either of my parents a lot. During that time, I was just trying to, I think, find myself and have my freedom. I had a boyfriend, and you come to find out later, because I was just so naive, that he was doing drugs and some hard stuff that I'm like, yeah, no. Because I'm not doing that. That's not something that I was going to do. I was just drinking and stuff, but drugs, like, no, that's not. I drew a line. That is not something that I'm going to do. Y'all do what y'all got to do over there, but as for me, no. So I do thank God for um watching out and watching over me, and allowing me to make it out of those situations that I was in. I could have went to jail. I did, having some encounters that did scare me. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. So God really just watched out and watched over me. Made it to into my 20s. And it's like, it's interesting. Like, that is it seemed like where I blossomed, like, oh, like now I'm pretty, because before it was just like, I was just like a little dog on the street, but you hit those 20s and maturing and physically, developing, but I really started to get a lot of attention from the guys, and then started to feel like, oh, I'm not as ugly as everybody around me is making me feel. Not family, and not your friends, but it's like when you see everybody else around you getting attention, you're like, what the heck is wrong with me? So I just ended up being like the little third wheel most of the time, but I hit my 20s, and it's like I hit a point in my life where I'm like, wow, I actually can turn some heads. Now, do I feel like I allowed it to blow up my head and like I just um, walked around like I was the ish? No. That I don't know, for some reason that never has been me. I never looked in the mirror and like, oh girl, you it. Nobody can touch you. That's not me. And I was never one of those girls who just kind of wore like no clothes. Um, I was always, I think, as those younger years, me being bullied and picked on for my shape, um, made it so that I was not one of those people that was going to show it. I was very self-conscious, about everything because, you're constantly made fun of. So it's like, well, I'm going to cover up everything. So that was, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm like, it was a strange, like, I don't know. But yeah, I started really to hit a stride and became, um, more confident. And when I say more confident, I meant that I really started to speak my mind. I was the friend that people knew, if you came to me, I'm going to be honest with you and I'm going to tell you exactly, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to lie to you. Um, so that was one of the things that I really became confident in. Did it isolate me at times where people didn't want to tell me stuff? Sure. Um, but I don't think I was overbearing in my thoughts. I sat back and I listened and I'm like, okay. And then when it became like where I just couldn't take it and hold my tongue, then I'm just like, yo, you're stupid. And the situation you're in is dumb. Like, you need to get out of it. Like, you can do better. Um, and I've had to have some really hard conversations when you saw, one of your friends, boyfriends cheating, and like, am I supposed to sit back and not say anything? Like, what kind of friend is that? So I really got into situations where when I would tell my friends the truth and what I saw, and then they got mad at me, and I'm just like, okay, this is like a no-win situation. But so would you rather not know? Like, okay, whatever. Um, and I think continuously going through, situations like that, you start building up more walls. And it's like, okay, so you have all these walls that you're building up and you're becoming very hard as a person. I was cheated on by my boyfriends. I'll say like two, three, maybe, that I knew about. So then I began to take on the mind frame of that. I would get into a relationship, but my mind frame was like, I'm going to get you before you get me. I'm like, I'm not going to sit back and just be cheated on. I'm not gonna sit back and just, have all my feelings unwrapped and you go and you just do some dirty stuff. I'll go and I'll do that before you get a chance. So I went through a period of like, I'm going to not allow you to break me down. I'm gonna make sure that I have like five cards in my pocket that I always can fall back on. And I yeah. So I became that chick that was like, okay, you feel like you're gonna get me, but you don't know that there's like five waiting in line that I'm, freely talking to that's ready to take your place. Like, I don't have time for getting got. Like, that wasn't it. So that mind frame, when I look at it, it kind of it did damage, because you are going through, and it's like, what's the point of even having a boyfriend, or being in a relationship if all you're going to do is cheat on them, and make sure that you have fall guys that are there to take their place, so. And I was a good liar. I was a very good liar. People are just like, the guys are like, oh, I heard you were, with such and such and such, or you were talking to such and such. I'm like, me? No, never. That's not, I would never do anything like that, and I covered my tracks and made sure that, you know, yeah. Okay. So, needless to say, all of that stuff just started to build up. And I became even more broken and hardened. And I was like, why can't I find someone to love me just for me, just to accept me for me, that doesn't want to, cheat or hurt me or whatever. And it was interesting that I was always the girl who was like, I'm not having kids. I don't want to watch your kids. Don't, I don't even like kids like that. I don't want to be responsible for anybody. And then I got into a relationship that I was in for about 6 years, 5 to 6 years. And I ended up like, to the point like I was just tired. And I was like, I just want someone to love me um, unconditionally. And so I ended up getting pregnant. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to have this baby. And she or he, whatever, I was like, they're going to just love me unconditionally. And the stupidity in me of thinking that way is that not realizing, okay, this child is going to be brought into the world, not in a two-parent home. Um, you know what I mean? Like feeling, like, why don't I have a dad when all the other kids are going to go visit, their dad? So, and the reason I say that is because when I did find out that, I was pregnant, it was, I think, a month out from my then boyfriend being sentenced to go to jail. So when I had my daughter, her dad was in jail. So thank God for, my parents and my family rallying around. Now don't get me wrong, they weren't all like jubilee, like, hey, oh, we're so excited that we're going to be grandparents and that you're doing this in a wrong way. And of course, their parents, so they see the bigger picture and they see the end game and the damage that is done when you're a young mother, you're not married, and the dad is not there present, to be able to help parent and give the child the love that she needs. So yeah, so I believe I was 21 when I had my daughter. And I doted on her. She was my little princess. I don't, you're a young parent. And was I the best parent? No. Did I know what I was doing? No. I did make sure that I tried to listen and talk to my mom, and my dad. And we began to mend our relationships, and I knew that I wanted my baby to have a great relationship with her grandparents. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I thank God that my mom was there when I delivered. My daughter delivered. I didn't deliver. I mean, when I had her. Because of course her dad couldn't be there because he's in jail. And these are decisions that I'm making, and I'm just like, yeah, hindsight is 2020, and having a relationship with God and understanding, how things are supposed to be done, and there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. Um, I have, apologized like to my daughter, because she didn't have that close knit relationship with her biological, like I had wanted. It was a lot of immaturity there. Um, Still is, point blank, period. It's the truth. So, I wish that a lot of teenagers and young adults and young women can understand that don't bring these kids into the world trying to control a man, because that's not going to work. Don't But don't do it to the kids. um you know Hold off on doing that until you can find a person who's really going to love you and who wants to make you their wife, um and who's going to invest in you. Now, do all marriages work out? No, I know that. But at least that child will be like, my parents tried. They tried to do things the right way. They tried to make it work. um and I know that, even in marriages, one spouse can die. So you are left alone, So I do know that everything is not perfect, and I do know that things end up in divorce. I'm a child of divorce. But I know what it felt like for me not having my parents together, but I turn around and I inflict that upon my baby girl. I'm just like, come on, like, dude, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? You didn't want it. You turned out a hot mess. And then you turn around and then generationally, you're passing down this line of hurt. And I'm not going to say it's a generational curse, because things can be broken. Things can be done the correct way. But bringing a child into the world when you yourself are a hot mess is not going to fix you. It's not going to fix the situation that you're in. You're just doing more damage, and you're piling on more hurt and more things that you have to pay for in the future. And I'm not talking about paying for with monetary. I'm talking about paying for with areas in your life, because when you want to have that close relationship with your child, but you're bringing them in broken. You're not giving them a fighting chance. Um, so yeah, and I wanted the world for my daughter. Um, and at this point in my life now, I'm still working on mending the relationship where my daughter can trust me and know that I love her unconditionally. Um, but she still has a void in her life where she doesn't have that relationship with her biological dad. Like, I mean, what daughter doesn't want her dad to love her? So, and I did that, but I have apologized. My apologies don't fix the situation. Um, all I can do is continue to pray, and ask God for guidance and to help heal and to mend, um, my baby girl, for the areas that she is still broken in. And I'm praying that she finds a fix and can have that relationship with God, because that's what heals, and I'm trying to forgive myself for the areas that I wasn't whole in and didn't work on beforehand. Yep. So I yeah, okay. So we have gotten to my 20s, 21. You think that I would have had enough? No. That's when I really start partying. Clubbing, going out, drinking and drinking, driving, doing some crazy stuff. And at times feeling extremely like depressed and suicidal. Um and thank God for my parents, being there for my daughter. Now I did work. I worked full time. Made sure my daughter was, had clothes, had went to daycare, and um but when the weekends hit, it was just like, okay, little one, giving you your bath, putting you to bed, then I'm out. Um and those were some. Did I have fun? Yeah, I had some fun. I had fun, but it was still going through those situations where I could not find the one, you know. And I ended up getting into a really extremely abusive relationship, and that that took a lot out of me, for me to realize that I was in like an abusive relationship, and to understand the control that was trying to be put on me, was it was very eye-opening once I got out of it. Now I do want to say that even though I was in an abusive relationship, it wasn't the abusive relationship where that he put hands on me and I didn't fight back. My dad taught me how to fight and to fight like I was a dude. Like it was just like man up, you know what I mean? And I did, I didn't walk away unscathed. But I was not the timid woman who will sit in a corner and cry. Like, you put your hands on me, I'm going to turn around and I'm fighting you like a man. Like, you're trying to pull my hair out, well, you're going to be bald just like me. I'm going to get my hits in. Like, I made sure, and I thank God that my dad taught me, and my mom, but my dad really taught me how to hold my own. Um, and I never forgot those lessons. And I think that is one of the reasons I was able to survive and to get out. Um, because he presented himself like he was a victim. Because it's like I heard that he had thrown his previous girlfriend over the apartment. Um, like, you have a balcony. Well, he threw her over the balcony. Um, and of course, his story and his rendition was that, no, I didn't do that. We had an argument and she just wanted to make me look bad. And, it was all her. She's crazy. And I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, and he didn't realize that he met a real one in me because, okay, I did fall for it. And it took about a year and a half for the real him to come out and to surface. And, it was like little hints of it presented itself. And then the real him surfaced. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay, I see who you are. All right, I got you. You're showing me. Um, and I never forget that, we're driving down I'm driving because he didn't have a car. And I'm driving down the street and we're getting into like a disagreement, and he takes, like, we're stopped and we're like at a red light and we're arguing and there's cars in front of me, there's cars behind me. He takes the keys out of the ignition of the car and throws them in the street. I'm like, you done lost your mind. Like, you know what I mean? Then he grabs me, and grabs my hair and he's like not letting go. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, this is what we're doing. So I'm grabbing yours. Like, are we just really gonna do this? Like in the middle of the street? Like, oh, serious? So he finally lets go and he's sitting back and like I wanted to say, get out my car. But it's like you start to see a darkness in that person. You start to see, um, like it wasn't the person that I have been in a relationship with. Like, I don't know who you are. Like he became very dark. And it kind of shook me a little bit because I'm like, yo, this ain't you, I don't know who you are. Like, I'm not even close. So it scared me a little bit, but I'm not one to scare lightly. So I was like, okay. So I had to, humble myself a little bit, and I had to get out that car and I had to go find my keys in the street. It was embarrassing. I was like, yo, I'm getting up out of this situation. I'm kind of done, but me, like a dummy, gets myself into like further trouble, and we get an apartment, and everything's in my name, and I'm like, yeah, no, this is not what I want. And I'm like, you dummy, you should have figured that out before you spent all this money going into debt, over some dumb dude, right? Um, and so I was like, psh, it was like 2 weeks, and I'm like, you get it. Of course, your year, your lease is for a year, like in an apartment complex. But 2 weeks in, and I'm just like, nah, this is not for me. I'm like, Mama, please, can I come home? Because I do not want to be with him. I don't want to be in this situation. So like a dummy, I move out. But I don't know if it's like a dummy or for save my life. I'm not sure. But I started to try to get out of this toxic relationship. And I find out that he done they got some chick up in the apartment that is in my name. Furniture in my name. Everything in my name because you can't get anything on your own. You're busted. Like, ain't nothing about you, like, whatever. Um, and so I go up in there and I'm like, got my keys, open the door. I'm like, what is this? And who is this? And why do you have that person in something that I'm paying for? I'm like, oh no. So we start going for blows because I punched him dead in his face. Like, yo, I don't know who you think you're dealing with. So we fighting like two men. The fight went from in the apartment all the way down the steps, out to my car, and to the point that he slammed me on top of my car. But I'm like, oh, I got your hair, and I got you in a headlock. Like, I'm busting you up. I'm fighting him like a full dude. Like, you're not getting out of this unscathed, and nor are you going to disrespect me by putting somebody in the that I'm paying for. And honestly, like, I had two of my friends in the car, and I'm getting slammed up on top of the car, and I'm fighting, and they're just sitting there like, oh my God, Joy, wait, what is happening? And for me, that was the last straw. I was done. Um, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not paying for nothing. The furniture, I'm taking it. Um, so I take all my stuff, I move it out. I I'm cramming all my stuff into my mom's house. Oh my gosh. So we got like two couches, two of this, two of that. Um, and I'm just like, I need to rid myself of this situation. And oh gosh, it was crazy times. Crazy times. Um, but I thank God for preserving me. Because I could have been like the previous girlfriend, getting thrown over balconies, and I don't know how stupid I was, just so stupid. Ended up with so much debt, over something that could have been avoided, because when I got that inkling and when I saw that dark side, I shouldn't, why continue on? But it's an experience that I had, and I'm like, I look at it that I can now give my testimony, because I can understand how women get sucked into these toxic relationships, and these dudes that are so abusive, and they're so broken that they just want to break everything they come into contact with. So I'm thankful that I got out of that. God was really good to get me out of these situations. Um, so yeah, that is my experience with being in an abusive relationship, but it allows me to have empathy, and to understand what it's like for these women. Because prior to this, I was like, I will never ever let a man put his hands on me. I will never do this. As women, we talk a lot of smack. And for those women who had, you have been protected, kudos to you. My hat goes off to you. I'll give you applause. It's good that you haven't had to live through that abuse, and the control, because mind games are being played, and you get sucked in, you get drawn into, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to put my hands, I didn't mean to hurt you, and they start crying, and it's all, I'm so sorry, please don't leave me, and you just get sucked in, and you start feeling sorry for him, and just like you believe the lies. And some things aren't lies, but you just get drawn into the brokenness. And there's something that is really crazy about us as women, that we feel like are able to fix them and to heal them, and we can't. It takes them wanting to fix themselves, it takes them seeing themselves, and if we are going to go along with their abuse, they're breaking us. So now everything is broken. God forbid you bring a child into the world, so you have all this brokenness. And some women don't get out, and some women are killed by their abusers, being in these toxic relationships. And it hurts as a friend to see somebody, in a toxic relationship, but you do understand that all you can do is be there for them, and pray that they get out, be a listening ear. But it is draining, to those that love you, to see you in these really bad relationships. I did hide a lot from my parents. I hid like the black eyes, or the bruises, and the things that you experience. It didn't happen a lot because I didn't stay in it that long, but it was long enough. So I am grateful to God that I was able to get out. There's a lot of experiences that I've had, um, that everybody doesn't know. you know and there's so many things that I thank God that I made it out. But I thank God for his redeeming love. I thank God for him watching out over me, because there's so many situations that I got myself into that I don't know how I made it out. So I know that God is real. I know that he loves me, and that he forgives. And it's never to a point that we put ourselves down far greater than anybody else. And we have to really dig deep, put on our big girl panties and do the work to heal, to become whole. So this is my second part of my testimony. And we'll continue. I don't want to keep just holding you guys. Like, I could talk for hours. Like, who wants to just sit and listen for hours? If you do, then you can just watch the next episode and the next episode and the next episode after that. So I'm going to end it on this wise, asking you guys to pray for me, and I'm praying for you guys. Pray for those that are our enemies. I know it's hard. It's hard for me, So I got to get down and I got to do some kneeling and some praying for those that really want to break me down, But praying for you guys and praying that you guys can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that you can lean and depend on God more. Every day is a new day and it's a new opportunity. All right. I thank you guys for listening. Thank you for joining in. I thank you for your prayers. Just know that I'm praying for you all. If at any point in time you need to reach out, you can just leave a comment. And I'm here for you guys. I'm here for you guys. So praying for your strength. All right. God bless y'all. Lady Gem is signing out. And I'm praying that you guys have an awesome week.